I want to show you a strategy now that's a great alternative to RRSPs. It's a much better strategy than RRSPs. The tax savings are permanent, a lot more valuable. It's called a perpetual flow-through strategy. Now, I know a lot of you have heard of flow-through shares before. For those of you who haven't, I'm going to explain them to you. But even if you've heard of flow-through shares and you know what they are, I'm going to guarantee you've never seen flow-through shares used in this way before. So, first of all, let's look at flow-through shares. What are they? Flow-through shares are just shares of companies. Only some companies, when you buy shares of them, you get some tax credits. Rather than the company getting the tax credits and using them, the company flows through the tax credits to the shareholders. That's why they're called a flow-through share. And the way the tax credits work is that if you invest $1, you get $1 of tax credit. So let's say you bought flow-through shares, you invested $1,000 in flow-through shares, you would get a tax deduction of $1,000. It gives you exactly the same tax benefit as if you invested $1,000 into your RRSP. You contribute your RRSP, you get an offsetting tax deduction. Same here. There's no maximum. You can do it every year. There's no age restriction. You can put as much or as little into flow-through shares as you want. You can do it whenever you want. There's a lot of benefits to flow-through shares. There's a couple of drawbacks to flow-through shares too. First of all, like any investment, a flow-through share is an investment. You're buying shares of a company. You're buying stock. So that investment in itself can do well. It can go up in value. It can also go down in value. So you've got to be smart in which ones you invest, which ones you buy, that is. But over the long run, you'll make money investing in flow-through shares. But we just want to look at this strategy from the tax standpoint. So I just want to outline and illustrate the tax benefit. But one disadvantage to flow-through shares is that they're illiquid for the first 2 years. What that means is for the first 24 months, the $1,000, if you invest $1,000, is locked in. So locked in for the first 24 months. Okay, that's one disadvantage. Another disadvantage is if you invest $1,000 and you take the $1,000 tax deduction, your book value goes to 0. Okay, now don't worry about this. I'll explain what that means, but keep that in mind. So that's a flow-through share. That's how they work. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple. Now, let's look at how to use flow-through shares properly so you can really magnify the benefit of these things. So let's look at it this way. Let's say this year, year one, you invest $1,000. Sorry, let's say you invest $5,000 in a flow-through share. Okay? You would get a tax deduction in year one of $5,000. You get to reduce your income by $5,000. So rather than putting the $5,000 into your RRSP, you put it into a flow-through share, you get exactly the same tax benefit. Okay, now I told you your book value goes to 0 as soon as you take that deduction. Keep that in mind. Again, I'll explain that coming up. Year two comes along. Well, let's take another $5,000 and put that into another flow-through share. In year two, you would get a tax deduction in year two of another $5,000. Your book value goes to 0. Okay, year three comes along. Now, you could do the same thing. If you've got another $5,000 of cash sitting around, you could put it in there. If you've got $15,000, you could do it. If you have $50,000, you can put it. There's no restriction. You can do as much as you want. You can do it as often as you want. And some people just buy flow-throughs every year rather than putting money into their RRSP. But I think there's a smarter thing to do. Remember when I said earlier that your flow-through share is locked in for 24 months? Well, what that means is that when year three comes along, the one that you did back in year one is no longer locked in. In fact, what happens at the 24-month mark is that the $5,000 gets kicked out. Now, if this went up in value, it went to $6,000, you get $6,000. If it went down to $4,000, you get $4,000 back. But automatically, you get your money back. Now, I'm going to assume here that there was no growth, okay? Just to isolate the tax benefit. So we're going to assume you didn't even make $1 on the investment. Over time, you would expect to make money on the investment, but I'm not going to illustrate it here. So year three comes along, your first flow-through share comes out, back to you. You turn around and you reinvest it in a new flow-through share in year 3. Not new money, you put your original money back in. Well, you would get a deduction, again, in that year of $5,000. Now, there's a catch. And the catch is your book value of these went to 0. Remember, I explained that? That means that when this matures in year 3, you have to include that in your income. Well, in fact, you only have to include half of it because it's a capital gain. It's only 50% taxable. Don't worry about it too much. But what it means is that you've got to increase your income by $2,500 and you get to reduce your income by $5,000. That gives you a net tax benefit of $2,500. Okay? Year 4 comes along. Let's take this one. 24 months has gone by. You take this $4,000 out, you roll it back into a new one. Same thing. Get $5,000 or net $2,500 tax benefit. Year 5, you take this one, you roll it over, and you perpetuate the tax benefit. Year 6, year 7, year 8. Now let's say you did it for 10 years, and at 10 years you wound it up. Okay? Well, what happens, 10 years has gone by, rather than reinvest the flow-through shares, you just take your money out. So you've put a total of 10 grand in, right? You put 5,000 in, you did it twice, it gave you a total of 10,000. You take the 10,000 bucks out, you put it back in your pocket, you wind up the strategy. But how much tax deduction did you get over that period? Well, the first 2 years you got $5,000 each year tax deductions, that's $10,000. Then you got 8 years, the next 8 years, you saved $2,500 off your income, you saved the tax on it. That's in total $30,000 of tax deductions, and at the end of the day you got all your money back. Far better strategy than an RRSP, called a flow-through perpetual strategy.